everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be about something that I wasn't sure I was ever going to share with all of you. And that is about our fertility journey and the loss of my fertility and our ability to have any more children. This is something that actually, believe it or not, comes up a ton in my day-to-day life. Just like I share with you guys here on my channel about how we enjoy our family and we love spending time together and just our motivation for how we live our life. I think that there's a very natural question that comes after that whenever, we have our two kids is, well, are you going to have more, or why don't you have more kids? And like I said, I get it a lot in my day-to-day life, and I have gotten it here on my channel, and I talked a little bit about that in the Q&A. And it's a story that I hope to share with you guys to encourage and not discourage. I don't want anyone to feel like that because my story went this way, or this is what God had for me, that is necessarily what He has for you. I don't want you to feel unhopeful when you hear our story, because there's so much hope. There's a testament of God working in our life through this, and I hope it helps somebody who's going through a really, really difficult time and isn't sure what the future is going to look like. Understand that you're not alone, that other people have walked through difficult things and come out in a place of gratefulness and in a place of being okay and being able to put one foot in front of the other. So in order to start the story, I think I should tell you a little bit about our journey to having children. If you don't know, we have two boys. They are 9 and 7, and I always had really difficult pregnancies. When I got pregnant with my first son, it's when we found out that I had some uterine abnormalities, and both of my pregnancies were high-risk pregnancies that resulted in cesarean sections. Between our children, we lost a baby very early. We had probably known for maybe 5 days whenever I started to get symptoms of a loss, and had some blood work done, and we, found out that we were having a miscarriage. We had our oldest son in 2008, we had a miscarriage in 2009, and we had our youngest son in 2010. And then 2 years later, in 2012, we actually found out that we were expecting baby number 3, our 4th pregnancy. And we were so excited. We had actually just gotten home from our first trip to Disney World. We were so excited. We had been wanting another baby, and we were just excited about this new life. First doctor's appointment for the beginning of November, when I would be right around about 9 weeks, I guess was set to be the first week of November, but around Halloween, and so I was almost ready to have my appointment, I started to have symptoms of a miscarriage. We went right into the emergency room and realized very quickly that there was something else that was going on here. We were taken for blood work and an ultrasound, and then spoken to by numerous doctors, and what they thought was going on at that point was that I had a cesarean ectopic, which basically meant that the baby had implanted in my cesarean section scar, my previous cesarean section scar from having my boys, and that they were saying that is not compatible with life. On the ultrasound, we saw the baby, but we didn't see a heartbeat, and we saw a lot of pocketing of blood around the baby. And they said that was because there was trauma going on in my uterus, something that shouldn't be happening. And they said, we need to admit you. We want to give you methotrexate, I believe it was, to terminate the pregnancy, because this is not compatible with life for you or for baby. And so that was hard to hear, but it was Not as hard as what we were about to go through, but it was hard to hear. So I did decide, go ahead and stay, be admitted like they had wanted, but I wanted to wait until I spoke to my doctor in the morning before I did any type of treatment. And they said, of course, that was fine. I was seeing a new doctor, unfortunately, due to insurance. And as soon as she came in and I met with her and I spoke with her, she knew that it was a good decision for me to not do anything at this point. I had a lot of questions about what was going on, a lot of questions about whether or not we were just too early to see a heartbeat, about the fact that the baby was growing pretty much on point and that, between 7 and 9 weeks, you might not always see a heartbeat. And so she did agree for me to come back into the office, get an ultrasound, and have an appointment the following week. And I went back in for that appointment. It was a long week of waiting. But I went back in for that appointment and we saw a baby with a heartbeat. And it was the sweetest picture, which made for such a confusing situation for us to be in. We saw that baby, we saw that heartbeat, and we saw our child inside my uterus. And so when we went to the appointment and the doctor proceeded to tell us that, they confirmed it is cesarean. She then called it cesarean implantation, which means the baby has implanted and begun to grow in your cesarean scar. And it's not compatible with life for you or baby. You are putting yourself at a great risk continuing this pregnancy, and you are not going to get a living, healthy child out of it. Her recommendation was to terminate. And we left the office. I remember just being hysterical in there. I feel for that poor doctor because even though she was telling me something that I didn't agree with, that I ended up not going through with, which I'll talk about that in a minute, she was doing her best job. She was trying to do her best job, and I was a basket case. So we left the office and went down for blood work. And before I left the hospital that day, I went back into the office and said I need to cancel all of the appointments that I have to further go through with any type of termination. I can't do this. And I knew in my heart that was not what God was asking me to do. And I knew what the doctor was saying, but I knew that that isn't how I believed. And that I believed that this baby inside of me had a purpose, and that I was not the one to be able to choose if it lived or if it passed on and when. And so I decided in that moment that we were going to continue on with this pregnancy no matter what that meant. Of course, referred me to maternal fetal medicine at a very world-renowned hospital in Pittsburgh because they said there was nothing else they could do. And we went through a lot medically. I'm not going to get into all of that and the whole entire medical situation, but every week we went to the ultrasound appointments and the doctor's appointments, and we were warned, this isn't compatible with life. You are risking your life. This is not going to end well. We had a medical plan of action because I would bleed heavily and need to be taken by ambulance to the hospital to be monitored, then be sent home. So every week we would go to these appointments and we would get ultrasounds and we would see the baby growing. And those ultrasound pictures, I have them right here. I will show you guys a close-up of them at the very end of the video, or you can just, because I don't think you're going to be able to see it really well here, but we watched our baby grow and get knees and get elbows, and we knew in our hearts that God had led us to make the right decision. And there's nothing like fully relying on Him. If you have never been in a situation where you have no other comfort in this world, because nothing anybody could tell me. Actually, there were lots of people in my life who told me the opposite. Like, you shouldn't do this. You can't keep going on with this. You have 2 kids. You need to think of them. And all I could think of was what my heart needed to do. And that was let this continue until God said no more. On December 12th, I woke up and I had some very heavy bleeding. I was taken to the emergency room. And that is when we found out that the baby had passed away, but because the baby's placenta, it's called placenta percreta, increta, or accreta, and it was actually like at the worst stage because it was going outside of my uterine wall, was attached, that it was causing like a uterine abruption and a massive hemorrhage. I was in and out of consciousness. I had 2 medical procedures that day. One that compromised my fertility, and full blood transfusion, fresh frozen plasma, clotting factor. Pretty much, it was severe. It was severe. It was a severe medical situation. But when I woke up in ICU, it was very sad knowing that the baby had passed away. Knowing that our child had died, the child that we prayed for, the child that we longed for and looked for and couldn't wait to get to the ultrasound every week to see that baby. But then I think the thing that was hardest was the fact that through everything that happened medically, that I would no longer have the ability to have any more children, and that the medical procedures had compromised my fertility. And that was really devastating because it was hard. It was hard to think about the fact that, you know, you love being a mom so much, and you wanted this, not only this baby, but you wanted, you know, children. Just there, it felt almost like there wasn't hope after that, because I knew that that chapter had ended. In the weeks to come, you know, it was difficult, but God, he did amazing works through it. He did amazing things in my relationship with him, and teaching me that he is in control, that he is sovereign, that he does have our best interests at heart, that through our worst pain, he is still on the throne. And it was a great testimony to his greatness and his love. And I don't think that if I wouldn't have walked through that, I would be in the place that I'm at in my faith. I know that the Lord had a lot in it, but that didn't make it easier on a regular, everyday level. Sometimes I still wonder why, and it's 5 years later. Sometimes I still question, man, why aren't we? Why was this taken away? But I know that it was the will that was for our life, and that maybe it was so that we would tell our story, because I've told it in many different avenues. I've told it because we chose not to terminate, and told it from knowing how difficult that decision in and of itself is. And to people who are struggling with the idea of if they will or ever have any more children, like secondary infertility. It's something that has gotten, it's part of who we are. It's part of our journey. And I hope by sharing this that you guys can see 5 years later, even though you could tell there are parts of the story that are hard for me, that at the end of the day, I'm able to live joyful in my day-to-day and grateful for what I have been given, and hopeful that maybe we will adopt or maybe we won't, but hopeful that this is where God wants me, and that he has set up my life perfectly after his will, and that, you know, there are blessings to be had through the pain. There are. If you are going through something right now, if you are struggling with the loss of your fertility and you want to message me, please do, because it is so difficult, and it's not something, to be quite honest with you, that people talk about very much. And not something that I hear a lot of people or blog posts. There's a lot about fertility and infertility, but not necessarily about a loss of fertility. And so I want to be of a support to any of you that may need it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.